Gearheads, thanks for tuning in. This tire machine has given Dan a run for his money. Now he thinks the pedals are leaking, so he's going to put new O-rings on them to see if that fixes the problem. Hey Dan, run that intro!
Hey Gearheads, thanks for tuning in. So you know I have this Coates 5030A tire machine. The basket is a little bit slow, it works better backwards than forwards, so I'm thinking I have to repair or replace the O-rings on these pedals. So that's what this video is going to be about. And then we're going to be able to have this machine up and running completely. Now, I do know that I also have a single stage air compressor. They work better on a dual stage air compressor because you can get the PSI up a little bit higher. But at least if I can fix the leaks in there, I think I'll be in better shape. Also, if you're interested in repair videos on this, I'll put up some links at the end of this video so you can see the other videos on what I've already fixed on it. Let's go ahead and take it apart and see what we're looking at. So everything is behind this access panel, so we're just going to start by popping this off of here and getting it out of our way. And then we're going to go ahead and remove the bolts holding this in. Sorry I had to get you a weird view for me to get in here and get these off, but give me a minute. Or less. And there's our access. Alright, so here's the pedals on the outside. Obviously they go through the housing. You have the pedal operations, and then you have, this is where the air goes in and comes out, and this is where those O-rings are. So I believe I could take this whole thing out as an assembly, and I'm going to, I guess, mark these error lines so I don't forget what goes where. And then if I can get this whole thing up on the workbench, you'll be able to see a lot easier what I'm doing, and so will I. Alright, so here's what I figured out. This whole front plate, I was going to see if I could pull this off, and it looks like you could pull this up off the pedals. There's some other little screws here, but it's basically got these 4 main big bolts. And I looked inside, and it makes it look like when I take that plate off, there's enough room that this whole thing will come out all in one piece. So I did go ahead and label all of these hoses. So just left front, left rear, middle front, middle rear, right front, right rear, or back, B I think I put. So hopefully these hoses have enough that when I take the bolts off of this, I can slide this whole thing out, and I'll be able to disconnect all the air lines, and then I can put this whole operation up on the bench. So let's see if that happens. All right, I know this seems like overkill, but it just seemed easier than using a ratchet. Yay. All right, let's see how this thing comes out. Alright, I think we are going to have to take these hoses off because they're not really flexing around enough. But let's see. Alright, well the good news is the whole thing's going to come out in one piece for repairing it. But it looks like these air hoses are not going to come out with it. So it's a good thing I marked them. I think I'll just disconnect them all on this side, and then we should be good to go. Alright, so there's 2 new ones I can get to. I really don't want to be using a power tool, but it's just what's around. And keep in mind, you can go slow on power tools. You don't have to munch on them like they're a drag race car. They're nice and slow. And then what I like to do with these hose clamps is I like to lift it up further away from where it needs to be and just go ahead and tighten it up just a little bit, and I do this on the car too. That way, you know it's not going to go anywhere, it won't fling around, and worse, when you put it on, you're not going to realize that it fell off somewhere and you have to take it back apart. To pull these off, depending on how long they've been on there, usually you can just twist it and kind of pull. If you need to separate it, make sure you're not doing damage to the hose. I'll try to use some trim removal tools. Usually these will get a notch on the inside after they're tightened the first time. So that should help a little bit. And then, let me see if I can move these out of the way. Oops, sorry. All right, got all the air lines off. I'll pull this out of here and we'll bring it up to the workbench. All right, so I'm glad it at least comes out in one piece. That definitely makes it a lot easier to work with, work on. Probably going to clean this thing while it's out as well. But let's take a look at how it works. So if we flip this up here, you can see on these three valves, this is the air hose that comes in from the machine. So it feeds in from the bottom of this, loops around, feeds into the bottom of that, loops around awkwardly. Seems like that should go down here to make a smoother transition. So somebody may have had this apart at some point. I don't really like that. Definitely going to fix it. But anyway, so the in is on the bottom of each of these three valves. So looking at it from the side, this is the one for the rotation. So when you push it down, it brings the valve out. So air will come in the bottom and go out this hose. And then when you lift it up, air will come in the bottom and go out this hose. So that gives you your rotation clockwise and counterclockwise. And then this middle one is for the bead breaker. So this basically just has one pedal direction. It just goes down to bring the bead breaker in. And then when you release it, it goes back to letting it out. And then this is the interesting one because this is for the rim clamp. So this kind of has to lock in position out and then in. So it's not a momentary. The pedal itself actually is a momentary, but you can see it's got this arm and then it's got this other piece. So when you bring it out, it'll go in and lock. And when you bring it, there you go. So when it's open, you basically bring it down and it'll lock up. And then you bring it down and it'll lock out. So this is very important that this works. So it locks it in this position and then locks it in that position. So three of the same type of valves, but they all work different ways. So they all have different needs for air as well. So these outs are like 1/4 inch. These you can see are a little bigger, maybe 5/16. And then these are actually the push clamp, push release, which I believe all these used to be. These have probably been worked on before, so that's why someone has these. But I believe this whole machine, as you can tell from these, and I think some of the other ones I worked on, some of these other hoses, they have these push release. So that's kind of the way the factory did it, which is pretty cool. So let's clean this thing up and then see what we need to do to get these out. All right, I got most of the big dirt off. I'll clean it up a little bit more as I go along. This is the one I'm concerned with, so I'm going to work with this one first. You can see the pedal is a little bit loose on the rod, so I may see if I can get a bigger pin, thicker pin to kind of get rid of that play in there, because that'll definitely help. And then there's a little play in the rod as well. So I think we'll find out. I'll take this pin off, and then this will just come off. We'll take these hoses off the back, and then we'll see what it looks like in here. So starting with this pin, this is just an R key. And it actually is in here too deep, but we can pop that out and we'll slide this out, and that's pretty easy. And then on this side it has two little Allen keys, but before we do that we need to get these air lines off. So if I didn't show you these before, let me zoom in and show you. So these are pretty neat setups. It's basically you just push the ring in and pull the hose out and it comes out. And then when you're putting it back together, as I said, this one's a little messed up. Oh no, that one's messed up. When you put it back together, you just basically push it in and it kind of clicks and locks in. And you do need to make sure it goes in all the way and then you'll be good. But yeah, basically, and I think this is the way some new vehicles work as well. So we'll just take these lines off so they're out of our way. These are those weird hard plastic lines also. I don't know if they have to be this for this kind of setup, but I mean, as long as they're in good shape, we'll clean them up and reuse them. And then here on the inside, you can see it's just two little Allen bolts that hold it on. So take those off and it'll all come out. All right, so now that we got this whole thing out, we can really inspect it well. Looks like it's a single cast piece. It does have inlets and outlets here. You can actually see the piston in there, so I guess these are supposed to be open, we'll figure. And then these, obviously they're open. So you just want to kind of inspect it, and I'm going to assume that because it springs in like that, that there's springs in here. We need to take these four things off, and then this whole piston should come out the end. Be nice if you could see any of that. All right, so it was just those two Allen screw cap bolts that got this thing out. You can see, again, this is not too much to it. It's just a cast piece. You have the piston that goes in and out. So there's 4 more Allens on the back, and this whole thing should slide out. So we're just going to zip those off. We're going to be very careful because obviously this thing is spring-loaded. We don't want it disappearing on us, so let's go slow. So this is obviously on there, so we'll take this. Usually try to leave one bolt on and break this free. That way if it does spring and take off on you, you have a bolt in it kind of holding it together. So let me try to see if I can just pry that a little bit. There we go. So that kind of dislodged it. Now what I can do is I can hold it in and just make sure that it's not going to spring out. As you can see, it did take a little bit of force, but it's okay in there. So we can go ahead and take this off. I really should be wearing mechanics gloves, not these big, thick gloves, but those little plastic ones annoy me. All right, so let's see what this looks like in here. And here is the piston. So give you a little bit better look at this. So it just has these 2 ridges in here. So obviously this is spring loaded in here, so it'll push back. So here's your operation. So you want to make sure that you have good operation, nothing sticking in there. And the O-rings are actually inside here. So it's going to be hard for me to show you, but basically there's an O-ring that goes here and an O-ring that goes here. So you basically need to use pick tools and pick them out of there and put new ones back in. Now if you're wondering what I'm going to use, I found these green O-ring assortment set. It's a HNBR O-ring assortment. This is just from our favorite store, Harbor Freight. If you're interested, it's item 67644. I did find a lot of kits online for this specific operation of what we need here, and they were really expensive and you only got what you needed. So I said, well, you know what? If I buy this, I'm hoping the right size is in here and I'll have a whole lot of O-rings left over when I'm done. So think smarter, not harder. Work smarter, not harder. Think before you buy. Yeah, so that's what we're going to use. So let's go ahead and pull one out of here and see what size it is. And oh, that's the other thing. I couldn't find anywhere online that told me what size the O-rings are that are in here. So I need to look at it. Okay, so I can see there's one right here in the end. So need to make sure you know where they go. And I'm gonna hope that I can do this and get it working right. So yeah, not going to be very easy to get all these out and back in, and probably not anything you want to watch because it's going to be boring. So I'll go ahead and replace them all, and well, let me get one out and I'll make sure that I have the right size. So they are green. I did know that, so that's good. And then we're going to go ahead and see if we can match it up with one of these and hope we have the right size, or else I'm going to have to go back to the store or buy something else. So let's go ahead and open this up and see. Again, I couldn't find anywhere online that told me what size I needed. And looking real quick, I am not seeing the size I need. So I may have to go back to Harbor Freight tomorrow and go see if they have another kit. This one is definitely too big. So when you're replacing these, you definitely want to make sure that you have the exact size that came out. And I do not have that. So we're going to be on hold until I can get the right ones. I may have to order them online and may have to come back to this project. All right, so I got a set of O-rings. I'll put the link of the package that I bought in the description. I couldn't find anywhere that showed what size they were for me to try and duplicate them. So I just went ahead and bought them. So this is what we had and this is what we have. And I kind of tried to put them together and see what was going on. It does look like the ones that I bought are a little bit smaller than the ones I had on, or the ones that were on here when I bought it. So I don't know if they swelled or they were wrong from the beginning or whatever, but here's the true test. So looking at the shaft here, this is the O-ring that was on here, and you can see that it's got a little bit of play and it kind of slides around real easily. This is one of the new ones, and you can see it does not have that play and does not really move on here. So I'm going to hope that this will help seal it just a little better. I don't really have an issue with the other pedals as far as their operation, so maybe they have the right ones, maybe they don't. And some would say, since you have it apart, you might as well go through the O-rings on everything. Others would say, if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I'm going to go with the if it ain't broke, don't fix it. I don't really have an issue with these two pedals, so I'm going to leave them alone. I'm still going to clean all of this stuff up since it's out. It was easy enough to get this whole operation out, so if I need to again, it's not a big deal. And I'm also going to look at all of these hoses in here, make sure there's no leaking in here, and of course we'll clean out inside the machine as well. Then we'll go ahead and get this whole thing back together and we'll see what happens. So to get all of these O-rings in here, I basically just have to, I'm going to put a little bit of lube on them and just get them in, press them in, and then this whole shaft will just go right back in. So I'll do that off camera because it's probably going to be kind of boring. All right, well, I got all the O-rings in here. It's hard to see, and it was kind of a pain in the butt, but there is areas that they all go, so I basically use a little bit of this O-ring silicone grease. Very little because I didn't want to put too much on here to like clog it up, but I did get them all in there, so now I'm basically just going to put this in here and we'll put it back on and see how everything looks. I just have to remember which way it goes in because it does have threads on both ends. So I think, let's see, looking at the other ones like this, then it goes this way and it goes in on this side. So we're just going to put this in very gently and we're going to hope it slides in nice and gentle like. So let's see. It's kind of like putting a camshaft in. You just want to go very slow, try and keep it evened out. Use a little pressure here and there we go. So I'm going to put these 4 bolts back on and then we'll go ahead and put it back together. All right, we got that together. So this basically just goes through that hole, and this has 2 little tiny screws that go in here and hold it on, and that's what's on the other side. And all 3 of these have a pin that goes through the pedal and the end of the shaft there, and we're just going to line that up and we'll put this R key in, and that's all we need on that side. Now there's a little play on this, but I mean there's a little play in the whole thing, but essentially as long as you have the out and the in, I think we're good. Now, the last thing we have to do is connect these back, and we have these lines here. So I did clean them up because clean things just work better. So I wanted to just kind of blow them out. Also try to make sure that it doesn't feel like there's any leaks or anything like that. Well, that's good. So yeah, I guess we'll be good to go ahead and reconnect these. So we'll just flip this up, and I'm going to clean these up a little bit, because again, things that are clean work better because they know that you love them and you care about their cleanliness and their well-being. All right, so I got these hoses in. The feed comes in here, so this one will feed over to this one will feed over to this one. This is a right angle and ends here, so that's good. Now this does have other ports here and here that are open. This one has caps on it. I may want to look into that and see if these are supposed to have caps on them. I'm assuming not, because it doesn't make sense that somebody would take the caps off of those, and it works pretty good otherwise. So I'm going to double check that on some of the diagrams online, and then this unit will be good to be reinstalled. So like I said, I really didn't have any problems or issues with these other pedals. So I'm going to put it back together. Now, when you're putting it back together, again, it may be easier to attach the hoses while it's outside the machine here. So some of these hoses you might be able to attach when it's out like this, but keep in mind you only have so much room. So if you attach a hose like this, it might not be able to go back in. So I'm going to figure out the best way to get this all hooked up. Might be from inside here. You kind of have access. So I'm going to do that, hook all the hoses up, push this back into place, and then we're going to go ahead and check out the operation. So once you have all the air lines hooked up, which I've taken care of, you basically just slide this into place. Now keep in mind, this is, I think, an exhaust, so I had to twist that up to get the line out. So we got to push it back a little bit to get it in. Obviously the front, gonna make sure it's lined up. We got a couple of different bolts on the front here to get this back into place. So we'll go ahead and get these all in place and get them tightened up, and then we'll be good to go. So of course you want to make sure you get these in the right areas. Now if you're not working behind your 66 Chevelle in a corner of the garage with little tiny lights, you'd probably be in better shape than me, but just make sure this is lined up correctly. There's nothing on the other side that's in the way, and go ahead and get these 4 bolts tightened up. Now, in case that wasn't clear, these 4 bolts, these big bolts at the 4 corners, are the ones you want to take off to get the whole pedal assembly off. You don't want to take these little ones off. There's 2 here and 2 here. Those hold the pedals in and that sub-assembly. So if you just take these 4 big ones off, and I probably should have said that before, but hopefully you're watching this before you do that. So the 4 big ones, and this whole thing will come off. So now that that's on, we got to put the side on. But before we put the side on, since we have all this open access, you want to take some time to look at everything, check this belt, check the operation, make sure all the other hoses and lines and everything looks good, maybe even air up the tank, make sure the operation and the repairs, what you did, whether you did this O-ring repair or some other repair, make sure everything's working well before you put this side on. So I'm going to do that. I might not do that right now because it's kind of late at night. So I may do all my testing another time, and then I'll come back, put this side on, and show you how well, hopefully, everything worked out. So this thing has been kicking my butt. So I resealed this one, and you see how nice and tight that is. Very good tolerance. The in and out works very well. I'm having another issue. We'll get to that in a minute. This one looks really crusty. You can see how much play that has. So a lot going on there. I got this middle one off. I've actually resealed these. I used the paste, so I don't have any worries about it getting into the airlines. These fittings are kind of weird with these hoses. I taped them so I know how far they're supposed to go in. They go in and they lock, but the problem is underneath here, you see by this angle, like they have to go on a certain way, and then they twist. And as soon as they twist, it kind of leaks air. So I may try to replace these fittings with these type of fittings. But the thing I'm working on now is I did buy a couple more packs of these O-rings, because I figure I had the one, I have experience with this whole system going in and out. So I was like, let me just replace all of them. I'll put the link to where I got those in the description below. But for this, I decided, like I said, I might as well just replace all of the O-rings. And I just took the back off of this one. Now this is not sprung, this is just loose in there because it's got a spring on the pedal. But what I noticed is if you look at how much play this thing has, that it's like loose in here. So further in it goes, the more play it has. Obviously it doesn't go in that far, but definitely has a lot of play in here. And you can see how much that's kind of moving up and down in there. But yeah, I figure I might as well just go ahead and replace it. When you take these valves out, you want to inspect this part real good and make sure it doesn't have any cracks or any kind of issues. You can get these along with the O-rings if you need them. And then, of course, you just got to pull out these seals in here. I think what ends up happening with these is they get a little fluid in them, or maybe they just get old and they kind of expand, and that of course makes it looser in here. So I'm going to go ahead and replace all the O-rings in this one, take this one off and replace the O-rings in that, and then I'll show you what the deal is with these and if I changed it or if I just try to put it back together again and hope for the best. Alright, I got everything back together. It's all flipped upside down now. And the thing I don't like is these little push connectors. This is the line that feeds into the system. So it's kind of like quick disconnects on newer vehicles. So you push the hose in and then it kind of locks out a little bit like that. And to remove the hose, you push it in and you can pull the hose out. So it's got like an internal push-pull disconnect. Problem is when they get on a little bit of an angle, it makes it not seal well. And I think that's what the issue is when I've put it back together a number of times. So I'm going to put it together this way. Normally this line comes in and then you're supposed to have a hose that goes from here to here, but this hard plastic line that fits in here that they used doesn't bend really. So to make a loop here, I don't have room down here to the bottom. I tried doing it through the top. It was too skinny here. It kind of bends it around like this. So what I thought was, well, why can't I go from this one to this side of this one and then out this way to this one? So instead of trying to go this one to this one and having it really tight, I went this one to this side, which basically it's still going from this pedal to this pedal to this pedal. It's just kind of taking a different route, and then I move this one around to go this way. So no kinks in the line. I do have some kinks on this one. I tried to heat it up with a heat gun to try to relax it a little bit. That didn't really work, but these seem like they're going in pretty straight. This one's a little bit of an angle, but once I can get this one in, I can twist this a little bit to make sure this one's not twisting, and that will straighten this one out a little bit. And then I'm gonna hook up the other air lines to all the pedals, and I'll show you what happened. Hopefully there'll be no leaks. All right, so I guess I can film this because, why not? I mean, the nice thing about this whole system is it comes off with 4 bolts. You can take these 4 bolts off, and that gives you just the pedal assembly. Or what I actually did was I took this piece off, and you can see this. All right, so here's the whole assembly. It's really nice because you can actually take this front plate off with these 4 bolts. Or what I did was I took the 4 bolts off the back and just took the pedal valves off, and the pedals are in the middle. So anyway, this basically just slides right in here, the whole thing, and then we're going to hook all these hoses up on the inside. All right, so here's what it looks like, and I still have the air hose up, so yeah, I'm going to go ahead and open up the air compressor. I'm not going to turn it on, so that way we don't have the air compressor going on a whole bunch. Hopefully it doesn't need to, but let's see what happens as it fills up. Hopefully nothing leaks. Alright, it's making less noise as time goes on, so that's good. Maybe it's just filling up all the internals. Hopefully it'll get quieter and won't leak. Or it'll continue to do what it's doing, and we're going to have to see what's going on. Maybe there's a lot of cavities in it. Starting to lose faith. Let's see. All right, so this is take 2. So I took the feed for the hoses, the feed for the air for the bottom off and put it back in. I felt a more positive click. So we're gonna go ahead and air it back up and see what happens. Now, as we know, it does take a minute for everything to fill up in all the cavities. If the pedals aren't seated correctly, then they need to be adjusted, but I think we did that. So all these pistons have to fill up on the bead breaker and also the one on the turntable. So give them some time to fill up. This hose is not looking good up here. I know you can't see that, but I'm looking at it. There we go. That one just needs to seal itself, I guess. And the rim clamp. That one's good. Feels like something down here is still leaking. This is the same one, it feels like. I don't know if it's the angle. Yeah, because I can move it and it stops. So it's on a little bit of an angle. It might be another little leak, so let's see if I can make this work better. Okay, so I put the whole thing back together again, I think for the 4th time, maybe 5th, and it's still leaking out of these fittings, namely the one, not the right angle, the one that it comes into from the machine. This is the other end of that, and it's actually a T-fitting, and it's got a hose on one end, like a regular hose on a barb, that looks like this. So I was thinking, well, why don't I just replace all of these with barbs? So we're going to get rid of this hard plastic line. We're going to go with this nice soft rubber line. It is air rated. Make sure if you're doing something like this, you have the correct hose. There is hose rated for fuel, hose rated for air, and then something in my eye. Hang on. There we go. There's hoses rated for fuel, hoses rated for air, and then regular hoses. So under a pressure situation or a fuel situation, make sure you're using the right hose. This has an orange line, which means it's for air. I don't know if that's true or not, but I know it's rated. So we're going to go ahead and switch it out. And of course, you can't go buy the fittings you need ever because just people don't have that stuff in stock. So what we do have is Home Depot to the rescue. So what we have here is a selection of fittings. Basically, I had to buy tees that have threads at the end, and then we're going to go ahead and thread these barb adapters into it. So it will basically look like that. And then I got a right angle one for the last one. And we got some hose clamps, so they'll all be the same size hose clamps. Make it nice and easy. And that's going to help turn this to this. Wow, I love the magic of TV. So what I did is, so I got these T-fittings, I got the barbs in the ends, I did seal them with Teflon paste, not the tape, because you don't want to use tape, because if it comes off, it's going to get in these valves and wreck them. So we have this nice flexible line that's rated for the PSI of the machine, and we got this all set up, so I just got to put the pedal back in. I am going to do one more fitting, and this air line also, it's the last plastic line in this system. So with this, we should be covered. All right, I got it back together again. Let's see what happens. It sounds good, but there's a little leak. Let me see where it is. So there is a very, very small leak somewhere in this system. I don't think it's in the pedals. I think it may actually be my fitting up here. But as far as this goes, this thing is together, and that's the way it's going to stay. And I'm actually going to be moving this, hopefully this weekend, from here over here. Once Eric gets that Buick 455 engine out of here, I do need to move around the El Camino this weekend. Got to do some other stuff, so That's going to be it for this episode. I would call this a win. I still, like I said somewhere in the video in the past, you really need a 2-stage air compressor to get the PSI that a tire machine likes to operate at. So the small amount of tires I'm doing here, I can kind of deal with it because I'm not doing tires day in and day out all day long. But at some point for the future, I may want to get a bigger compressor, or I may just get rid of the tire machine, because once I get rid of these cars, I'm not really going to be buying and selling a whole lot, because I want to build the 67 RS Camaro I have, the 70 Malibu, possibly the 70 SS. That's still a chance I may get that one. I'm going to see. And next time I go to Willie's, he does have a 67 El Camino that I may buy since I'm selling this one. So there's other things coming up on Dan's Garage NC. But this video is running really long. But anyway, if you were planning on doing this job, this should really help you out. I'll put the links down in the description on the O-rings and anything else? No, I think that's pretty much it. So the O-rings for you. Anything else you need, shoot me an email. And other than that, check out the cool channels down below. I'm going to link some other people that are small YouTubers like me. If you check me out on TikTok or Facebook or Instagram, make sure to comment something. Send some people over to YouTube. Tell them to subscribe and check out the content if they like it. And as always, until next time, stay positive and keep on wrenching.